My dad's hair is curly.
There you go.
And all my daughter's hairs are curly. So you can probably talk to them about it.
I will. Everything. I'll tell them all.
Awesome. Welcome back to another episode of the 805 Life podcast, where we are pulling back the curtain on the myths and truths of real estate here in the 805 and beyond. I'm Sergio Gonzalez with SG Associates and my lovely co-host here, Courtney Allen.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
What are we talking about today so far?
Today we're going to talk about the perception of a real estate agent.
Okay. The good, bad, and the ugly?
The good, bad, and the ugly. That's exactly it.
All right, cool. Well, let's hop to it. What do you where do you want to start on that?
Oh gosh. I feel like we get so many, not horror stories, but kind of in a way about agents, how they talk to their clients and how they deal with certain situations. At least I've heard some things, and maybe it's because the people I know, they're just starting out.
Right.
So why do you think they get sometimes a bad reputation?
I think there's two different types of agents.
Mm-hmm.
There's the buyer agent, and then there's the listing agent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're dealing with different expectations on different ends. So if we start with the buyer's agent, I think that the perception of the agent has changed over these years because a lot more information is readily available.
Right.
So back in the day, you would not know which houses were for sale because there was no internet.
Right.
Right. It was all in a book. It was called the MLS book. So you had to go to an agent to get access to this book of what houses were for sale, aside from driving around and looking at for sale signs. But so with the internet and, IDX, MLS, being put on public, realtor.com and Zillow, all the information now is readily available. So sometimes, the perception, the value that a buyer's agent is bringing to the table from a consumer expectation is really I already found the house that I want to see.
Right.
Like they're swiping through, right? They're swiping and scrolling through online like, hey, I want to see this house. Well, the only way I can see the house is I have to go to a realtor to just let me in.
Yeah.
So sometimes the perception has been like, hey, you're like a door opener, right? And I have to call you in order to see this house. If I didn't have to call you, I probably wouldn't even want to because I don't know if I like the house. I don't know if I'm ready to do anything yet. But I have to deal with you. So I think the perception has changed a little bit with, getting access to the properties and then how they get access to, inside the house. So that's what I think is from a buyer's perspective. Of course, I think it's obviously much more than that, from the agent perspective is like, hey, how do you know what the value is of the home, right? Are you going to rely on Zillow or Redfin as that's what you think the house is worth?
Right.
Right. Because I think that has been pounded into a lot of consumers' minds of the Zestimate and Redfin and, what they say well, that's what I should offer, or I think that's what the house is worth. And that now should be changing because Zillow is now just a real estate agency just like anybody else. So are you relying on one agency to tell you what a home is worth? Or are you going to rely on the real estate professional that can account for, a little bit different perspective to account in the nuances of the location, the views, the lot, the comparables, all these other things that take place because valuation of home happens offline. It doesn't happen online, right? So the valuation needs to take place on site, not online.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What do you tell your team or teach your team, since you are the teacher? how to communicate with clients or how to communicate with, oh gosh, just everybody that you need to work with? It's like a certain system.
No, I think it's more of an art and science than like anything else, right? Like you have to understand that there's different personalities,
Right.
and that people use different words, have different body language, right? And being able to recognize who you're talking to, what their style is, what their preferences are, what their thought processes are, and then building rapport from there. So you have some people that are, if I put it in a job classification versus anything else, but we do use, it's called like a DISC profile, a DISC, right? You're usually one of those 4 types of people. A D would be like a CEO, a drill sergeant, right? Somebody who's a coach, very direct. You're giving orders. This is how it is. This is the bottom line. Give it to me quick. An attorney, right? An attorney would be like, just here's the facts. Here's the law.
Right.
Here's how it works. Just matter of fact, right? Then you have the I personality, which is like someone who's very bubbly, very like the social butterfly. Everybody, she or he walks in and just lights up the room. Everybody, they're the fun person, right? Right. So they're the light of the party. Like a job like that would be like a recruiter, right? Somebody who's, bubbly and easygoing, outgoing, very extrovert. And then you have somebody who's an S personality, very stable, doesn't like change a lot, right? Maybe like a teacher, right? Like very stable, could be a nurse, right? Calm in the storm, right? And then you have a C personality, very analytical, right? Numbers driven, next steps driven. Like I have to methodically think this out, how this is going to work before I make any decision, right? A thinker before anything. That would be like an engineer, right? An accountant, right? Needs to make sense, logical sense. It's not very emotional driven. It's very logically driven. So there's a lot of, how do you communicate with all those different 4 people?
Because they're so different.
So if I'm, naturally a D personality, like, hey, just this is a good house. This is the best house. Like, why aren't you buying it? And I'm talking to the engineer and he's crunching numbers. Like, what's the delta? What's the delta on the buy? And over the last 4 years, how has this neighborhood performed? What's the price per square foot? What's this going to cost me? Should I take out a loan? Should I, pay cash? How much am I going to pay in taxes? Like very methodical versus like talking to he's like, hey, what do you think of this neighborhood? I'm like, I think it's a great neighborhood. It matches your needs. You told me this. And, it's in a great neighborhood. Like, I think you should just do it. And he's like, all right, write it up.
Chill.
Boom, right? Like he knows what he wants. He's going to make a decision quick. And so I can talk to someone like that. Somebody who's on the opposite spectrum or very emotional, like very, like a I personality. Like, how does this feel to you?
Yes.
How do you see yourself living here? Can't you just picture yourself like on the weekends, just looking over the golf course? And you're like, yeah, I can. Right. So, you gotta talk to people how they want to be communicated, right? Not like how I like to be communicated. So it's not, people always say, oh, treat people how you want to be treated. No. Treat people how they want to be treated.
Yes.
That's the key, I think, to sales is you treat people how they want to be treated, not how you want to be treated. And I think that's the misnomer because growing up, treat people how you want to be treated, right?
But we're all different. Like
we're all different. So you got to treat people how they want to be treated.
You really have to be a people person.
Yeah. And even if you're not, you just have to learn the skill, right? Like, and treat people how they want to be treated.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
it's there's a great book too called like the 5 love languages, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's a great book, and I think that's a perfect example.
It's true. It's very, very, I don't know why too. As soon as I thought of disc, I'm very into astrology. Couldn't tell you why. I just thought like, oh, each person is kind of like one of the zodiac signs. I don't know if you're into
Yep.
astrology
So,
or not.
a lot of that, it all, translates in just however you want to, use it, whether it's astrology, Capricorn or this or that, the disc profiles,
Yeah.
the love languages, whether, this person likes to receive gifts, do they like, do they need to be constantly complimented? Do they need to be reaffirmed? Do you need to reward them? Like everybody ticks, what makes them tick, and you have to understand each one of those different people.
I'm very impressed that you know all the 5 love languages.
Yeah. So, I had to study this, right?
Right.
Like you're not born with this information.
Right.
You're not naturally aware of this. So, I read books on body language, facial expressions, how you stand can be, welcoming or repulsive, right? How you stand, how you cross your arms, how you nod your head, how you, all these kinds of little nuances, I think have an impact on how you relate to people, how you build a rapport, how you build trust, and how you come across, and how you're instilling confidence and certainty in the relationship and in business that you're doing. And it's a cultural thing too, right? Like in some cultures, shaking hands or not shaking hands, do you say, when they offer you something to drink or something to eat, right? Like I've literally gone at listing presentations and they're like, hey, we're making breakfast. Do you want something? Like, do you say yes? Do you say no?
Right.
Right? Like, what do you do? You're like, am I supposed to stay professional? Or am I supposed to like join in? And so those are like little things like that. Like, when you show up and they open the door and you see shoes at the doorstep.
Yes.
Do you ask to take off your shoes, or do you already have your shoes off? Right?
Right.
So things like that. Right? Like, I've had people say, hey, would you like a glass of wine? Would you like to take a shot? Right? I went to an appointment and I was like, hey, so, what line of work are you in? And he's like, oh, we came out with this shot machine to where they're like Jello shots.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's like a, kind of like a carousel. So you put it in, you put all your, your mix, your tequila mix or vodka mix, whatever it is. You put it in there, you freeze it, and it just dispenses it. So you don't have to do it the traditional way or whatever it is. He's like, you want to try one?
Oh.
I'm like, yeah.
That would have been great in college.
Right?
Wow.
So you never know what the scenario may be and how you're going to come across, because people want to do business with people that are like them.
Right.
Right. So the more that you can relate and you use the words that they use, you do the things that they do, and believe in the same things that they believe, or you can relate to the perception, how they see the world or how they see things, that is going to keep you in rapport and being empathetic to how they feel. Doesn't matter whether you agree or not.
Right.
Right? Because the other thing is like, look, we just came through a very tenuous political arena, right? Trump and Biden, and 50% believes one way and 50% believes the other way.
Yeah.
I have a lot of clients that were on both ends.
Right.
So, and people posting stuff on Facebook.
Yes.
That was crazy, right?
Oof. Do you have any instances when you've done your research, you thought you knew the person that you were walking in, and it just didn't go well?
Of course. Yeah. You know, they say something and then you say something and you're like, you look at their facial expression or their body language, or, you know, maybe they just kind of sat back in their seat. You're like, damn it, I just screwed up, or I just said something that didn't resonate with what they said. And so, you know, you have to, you know, after every client meeting, I kind of debrief myself and say, okay, what did I do well?
Right.
What didn't I do well? What questions did they ask? Are these the same questions that I'm getting consistently asked that I can just bring up to the forefront, right? So that they're not something that's being left out. I think it's one of the things that I often do.
It's a lot of trial and error in a way, right?
It is. But you don't really want to practice on your client. Right. Practice on the opportunity. You want to role play and practice on low risk, low stakes scenarios. So oftentimes I find other colleagues to do that with, right? Like, what are the common questions? What do you say?
Right.
What do I say? How do you answer this question regarding what's your process? What should we expect? Why should I hire you over so-and-so?
Right.
What's your commission? How long is your contract? What happens if I want to cancel? What's the process for showings? Who do you think is going to buy my house?
Right.
All these just common questions that, what do you think my house is worth? Right. A lot of times that's kind of the deciding factor, whether you agree with them or not.
Right.
Right. Like you have a number in your mind and they don't want to tell you sometimes. They want to see what you think.
Right.
And they're really just using that as a deciding factor to say, well, do you believe my house is worth that or not? And so it becomes contentious there.
That's tricky.
It's tricky. Like, how do you navigate that to where I know you have a number. I don't want to tell you my number because if I tell you my number, you may not agree with it. And now I've just lost my opportunity to earn your trust in your business.
Right.
So you kind of have to be able to navigate that conversation a little bit. It's an art for sure.
Real estate agents aren't that scary. They really aren't. At least I don't think so anymore now.
Yeah, I don't think it's a matter of scary. I think it's a matter of, from a listing perspective, I think it's a matter of is our house really gonna sell for the price that we want? Is it really gonna happen? How long is that gonna take?
Right.
And if I'm not happy, am I tied in with you? Right? Like, because you're signing a contract. So what does that mean? If I'm not happy, how do I get out? I think Zillow just put out a article on it, and it basically said how to fire your agent if you want to. And I think it got like a lot of heat around it, and they took it down because I thought it was honestly a good article because
it's honest.
It's an honest situations that many people have come across, and I think homeowners should be aware of what that looks like, what that means, what are the proper ways to go about it. Because I've been in that situation where they want to fire their agent and hire me, and there's certain steps and certain protections that they need to do in order to get that done. So
that's a whole other episode. Like we can even talk about.
Yeah. So yeah, let's wrap it up there.
Yeah.
Thanks again for watching this episode of the 805 Live podcast. I'm Sergio Gonzalez with SG Associates, Courtney Allen.
Yep.
Be sure to subscribe to our channel. Click on that little bell down below to get all the notifications of our latest episodes. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram. See you guys soon. Bye.
See ya.